Okay, when I last left you, we had finished the Crusades, we'd talked about the Normans, and it was time to move on. So, during the Crusades, we'll do one of these comic book kind of things. Meanwhile, back in England. There was, you all know the story of one of the great English crusaders, Richard III, known as Richard the Lion-Hearted, because he was so brave and awesome and amazing. And you also know that when he left to go on the Third Crusade, he left his brother John in charge. And you know how, you know all the stories of Robin Hood and how Robin Hood bravely fought against Prince John and his horrible taxes and all that other kind of good stuff. And all of those stories, except the Russell Crowe one, because, I don't know, Russell Crowe decided to use the name without reading any of the stories that already existed, I guess. But all the others end the same way. King Richard comes home. And when King Richard comes home, he punishes the people, or he punishes Prince John and the Sheriff of Nottingham some kind of horrible way, like in the Disney version, they make them break rocks, or in the Mel Brooks version, he renames all the toilets John's. But in this particular case, in real life, King Richard came home. And John was deposed, and everyone lived happily ever after. But real life doesn't end with the happily ever after. They really have to live through it. And unfortunately for everyone involved, including, of course, King Richard, Richard died just a few years later. And when Richard died, having left no heir, John was no longer Prince John, but he became King John, or John the First. Now this time no one was going to save the people, and John once again decided to aggrandize himself with grievous taxes and just horribleness and hurting people. So what does John do? Or what did the people do in response to John? We know what John did. The nobles got together, sick and tired of, well, being sick and tired, and they drafted a document called the Magna Charta. Now, the Magna Charta, and don't let the Latin fool you, by the way. Magna means big, and Charta means charter. So, if you don't have a clever name for something, you just name it that simple thing, but in Latin. I'm going to do that with my house. I wonder what house is in Latin. Anyway, the Magna Charta is pulled before King John in the year 1215. Yes, that's one of those dates that you need to know. The Magna Charta contains a few promises. It promises the right to trial by jury, for example. It does not allow the king to raise taxes without the consent of Parliament, which of course is made up primarily of nobles, especially in 1215, or completely of nobles in 1215. And so they take this to King John and they ask him to sign it, and of course he says no. They rephrase it, would you sign it please, but this time at the point of the sword, and John wisely opts to sign this document. This is the foundation for Western law, probably more than any other document, except perhaps the 12 Tables of Rome. You know what? I'm going to say even more so than the 12 Tables of Rome. This is significant. Remember, the other thing you should realize about this is remember the trial by jury thing I mentioned and some of the others. Those are exactly what the Founding Fathers were upset about. And if you think about it, you're going to take it from 1215 and you're going to go up to the 1770s. And these laws that Benjamin Franklin is so aggravated about have been on the English books for 550 years. And so, of course, the American colonists are upset that they don't have these rights, because these aren't just rights that they expect because of some tradition or because of some whatever. These are old. These are old, and so when King George III decides to violate those, he is acting like King John. By the way, King John is my ancestor. Direct line. So, yeah, some of you are descended from great kings, and I get King John. His blood flows in my veins. Someday I'll be as good a teacher as he was a king. That's my goal. Now let's go over to Spain, and we're going to talk. Let's not go to Spain yet. I don't want to go to Spain yet. Let's go first to Germany. Germany doesn't exist as a country. It isn't even Germany. It's just a bunch of random German states. But their leader is a guy named Otto I, and Otto I is obsessed with, of all things, Rome. And so he decides he's going to rebuild the Roman Empire, and he does such a good job that the Pope declares him the Holy Roman Emperor. Now, the real big reason this matters is because from here until it is created as Germany, Germany is not Germany. Germany is the Holy Roman Empire. Now, you may say, wait a sec, but Charlemagne ruled the Holy Roman Empire. Yeah, but remember, Charlemagne died, and that was the end of it. This stays the Holy Roman Empire. So unless I say Charlemagne, if I say Holy Roman Empire, you think Germany. Or if I say Germany in this time period, you think Holy Roman Empire. So remember that. Remember it forever and ever and ever, or at least till May. Now, this is not actually, as Voltaire pointed out, it is not holy. It's not Roman. And it isn't truly an empire either. But they call it that, and so that's what it's known by. So, Holy Roman Empire, I say Holy Roman Empire, you think Germany. Now let's go to Spain. That'll help us keep things in nice chronological order. Spain didn't exist yet. Instead, there were two kingdoms. One was called Castile, and one was called Aragon. Don't accidentally put an R in there, or it's Aragorn, and that would be bad. Okay. Castile and Aragon. Now, Castile, they had a daughter, the beautiful, the amazing. Well, actually the baby, but Isabella. And Aragon and Navarre, we're going to ignore the existence of Navarre pretty much forever, had a son named Ferdinand. And their parents decided that they would get them hitched. Yay! So now we have Isabella and Ferdinand, and this would be an alliance. Now, Isabella would rule Castile, and Ferdinand would rule Aragon. And that's actually going to be really important later, because when Columbus comes and insists on the ability to go from place to place, or to get his ships and whatever, Ferdinand thinks it's a terrible idea, but Isabella thinks we might as well try it. And so Isabella pays him out of Castile's budget, because Castile's much bigger, and she is much richer than Ferdinand. I imagine that led to some marital arguments. But either way, Isabella did it because she could. I imagine it being kind of like, it's my money. Now, the idea is that their child will rule both areas, but their child has two things that they considered problems back in that era. First, she's a woman, and women can't rule, so she doesn't truly rule them united. The second is obvious once you know what she's known as. She's called Joanna the Mad. So she doesn't really rule the United Place. Instead, a guy named Charles does. Charles, you'll know him very, very well. He's very important. Charles V will rule. He's Charles II of Spain, but he's Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire. He rules both places. So he will rule the United Place, and they will call that place Spain. But now that we've made it really complicated, let's make it really simple. The rulers of Spain, or the rulers of Castile, Aragon, and Navarre, Isabella and Ferdinand, they have one thing they want to accomplish more than anything else. It's called the Reconquista. As you can imagine, that is Spanish for reconquering. Spanish for reconquering. And what do they want to reconquer? They want to reconquer the Spanish peninsula. And so to do that, they get rid of all of the Moors, the Muslims from Morocco, and all of the Jews. Everyone who isn't a good Catholic is kicked out of the nation. That's going to hurt Spain basically forever. It's a stupid decision, but it's one that they make. Now they are ultimately successful with reconquering Spain in 1492, which is a date you'll need to know for that, and of course the other obvious reason.